Right, so this is the November meeting of the Environmental Sustainability Committee of the Corporation of the City of Sault Ste. Marie. I'll call the meeting to order. It's 4:02 p.m. I acknowledge with respect that we are on Robinson Huron Treaty Territory and that the land on which we are gathered is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe and known as the Watching. Watting is the home of Garden River First Nation, Batchewana First Nation, and the historic Sault Ste. Marie Métis Council.
It's Andrew.
So joining us today, Corey Gardy, Tori Kraus, right? You didn't change your, okay. Well, I was Eric. Mark, Donna, and joining us virtually is Andrew. I'm having a problem with name. Judge, thank you. I'm having a problem with names today. All right, so we need to have adoption of the minutes from our last meeting of October 10th. Could I have someone to move and second adoption of those minutes? Thank you, Tori. Thank you, Eric. Any questions, concerns, additions, deletions? Seeing none, all in favor of the approval of those minutes? And that is carried. Anyone today with a declaration of pecuniary interest on the items on our agenda today? Just want to be clear, I'm only thinking of this at this precise moment.
Which one?
Well, a couple actually. We've been through this before though, but I don't remember. So Councillor Gardy does not have a conflict as it relates to applications from the city of Sault Ste. Marie. Is that correct? Councillor
I
Gardy?
never thought about it.
I never thought about it
I
either.
never brought it
Doesn't
forward.
gain anything
I
financially.
well, I'll just, I agree with you.
Okay,
I
will
completely
leave it to
agree
him.
with you.
yeah.
It's coming, but also the university application. Does Andrew have a conflict with the university? And of course, that's up to each of them to determine whether they do or don't, but just
No, I don't think so.
Andrew said no.
no, okay.
No.
And remember, it's benefiting positive and it's benefiting or positively or negatively. Okay. So none other, great. Moving along, so we needed two people, a mover and a seconder for the adoption of today's agenda. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Corey. Any additions? Changes, deletions, seeing none, all in favor of approval of today's agenda, that is carried. Thank you. All right, so on our agenda today, we have 4 applications from the for the Green Initiatives Fund, along with a terms of reference update from a task force that was taking a look at that. So we will proceed with the usual format for looking at the Green Fund applications. Is this your summary that you have in front of, like, up on the screen or also in front of us?
Yeah.
So we will go through each application, clarify any questions, take a look at where everybody is sitting on that. As usual, everyone I'm not sure how many people, but 5 people scored these applications, and Emily will take us through this and then we'll see where we get to.
Okay, so we received, right now, the Green Initiatives Fund asks equate to just over $18,000. We have $18,231.13 remaining in the Green Fund. If all projects are approved as they've been recommended and submitted, we would have about $900 remaining in the fund to go towards tree planting on city land in 2025. As Donna said, we received 4 applications. The first was from Algoma University for their invasive species sign poster project. The Sioux Climate Hub submitted an application for White Pines, Little Forest, and Eastview Public School Outdoor Laboratory. Fire Services submitted an application for an electric snow blower, and the City of Sault Ste. Marie Recreation and Culture Team submitted an application for an electric lawnmower. Highest scoring project was the Sioux Climate Hub at 80%, followed by Algoma University at 66%. Third was the electric lawnmower from Sault Ste. Marie Recreation and Culture, and Fire Services at 47%. So we'll go through each project one by one, provide you with a summary and overview of the comments as well as questions received from committee members. So the first application received was from Algoma University for their invasive species posters project. The biology department is seeking funding to design, produce, and deploy 4 interpretive signs, giving information about 4 invasive species that grow in the forest adjacent to the university. The objective of the project is to inform the public about these invasive species, the presence, prevalence, and spread in our plant communities, consequences of the spread, best removal methods, and alternative species that members of the public can use in their place. These invasive species are often sold and grown as garden plants on ground cover species, with the purchaser knowing their propensity to spread and impact on local vegetation. They are also planning to partner with Clean North on this project as subject matter experts in Sault Ste. Marie. The environmental score for the project was 3.8, community impact, these are the average scores, 3.2, financial analysis 3.2, and project innovation or collaboration was 3. Again, the overall score was 66% with an average of 3.30. Comments received from committee members were great project, full funding recommended, no funding recommended. While it's important to inform the public about invasive species and best practices, $2,400 in signage in a limited area is not a good use of funds. Also, signs will be easily damaged or destroyed, and support funding revised total cost of the project, factoring in the addendum. We did, and that rolls into the questions and answers. We did receive a question from a committee member stating that the research and design fee in the original application seemed high. So I was asked to ask them for clarification on the research budget versus the consultant, how the 60 hours would be spent. Algoma, you advised that the quote came in before Clean North jumped in as a partner with a lot of background information. So the contractor will most likely be compiling the research and design of the signs. They provided a revised quote for that project cost being $625. As such, the total project costs were reduced to $2,476.23.
Okay. Further questions or comments about this application?
I didn't have any major problems with it. I just thought it was a bit odd that the partner was Clean North and not the Invasive Species Center. I don't know why that would be, but not a deal breaker, but I would think that you were considering partnering with the Invasive Species Center on this.
Other questions or comments?
I just had one comment.
Go ahead, Andrew.
Sure. And I was just eating. I don't know if you can see me.
Yeah, we can.
I turned my camera on
I'm as loud as I can go. If you could speak up a bit, Andrew, that would be great.
Yeah, I can speak up. So if you can just scroll up. Yeah, just there, just hold it there. The objective project. So about inform about the invasive species, their presence, prevalence, spread in our community, spread in our plant communities, the consequence of the spread, best removal methods. Like I'm for this project personally, but like I don't know if when they say removal methods, they're also including like the just like how to destroy them properly. And that's like a really important additional step. Like it's great to remove things, but then if you just throw them in the backyard or whatever, or throw them in a brush pile, they tend to spread. So I wonder if you could just ask them to add the appropriate, I don't know the right word, destruction or like
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know what the right word is, but yeah.
Yeah, they don't specifically state like what the what do they say here? Prevalent, spread, consequent, best removal methods. So I would assume that when they say best removal methods, they're going to elaborate, because I know there are certain types of invasive species. You gotta put in a black garbage bag, you gotta, keep it somewhere for like 2 weeks or something, so the seeds, etc., don't spread. So we'll certainly make sure that that is noted to the applicant, if they're
Right.
successful.
Other comments, Andrew? No? Okay.
No.
Anyone else? It was, I'll just say quickly, it was me who, so I sense everybody is in good with this. So I will say that it was me that recommended that this not be funded, and I will further explain to you briefly why. And my comments are as they are written there, which is, yes, I believe it's important to explain to people and so that people do understand the effect that invasive species have within our area. However, my challenge is, and I do understand that it's around, I'm a bit, I'm sure these things, perhaps not, however, but I'm sure these plants are grown elsewhere in the community and not just in that immediate area. And I thought it would be more important to use money like this to be more expansive about talking about it, not just in this specific area where you're only going to see it according to the application if you walk by, number one. And number two, it doesn't, unfortunately, and it's very unfortunate. Unfortunately, we can drive just about anywhere and see signs or buildings or other things that are damaged or destroyed. I feel that while this is an important thing to do, I feel that this is not the right way to do it, and that investment in that signage will not last very long in the form that's proposed. And those are the comments that I made. Okay, so we've gathered all the comments there. That's good. Let's move on to the second application, Climate Hub.
Okay, so the Sioux Climate Hub, they have submitted an application for just over $11,000 for a little forest at White Pines High School, and to add an outdoor lab arm to the Eastview Public School little forest that we funded earlier this year. So as a reminder, the Sioux Climate Hub is a local, unincorporated grassroots organization that applied to the Green Initiatives Fund for a little forest, the second in Sault Ste. Marie, in partnership with the ADSB and White Pines. They're proposing a community-led afforestation project on ADSB property by converting unused and underutilized lands, rewilding them with native trees and plants. As a reminder, little forests are collaborations between plants, soil, organisms, climate, geology, land, and people. They are an approach to rapidly regenerating Indigenous forests, human communities to help the land remember by restoring deforested land to the layered communities that once covered this land. Phase 1 of their project for 2025 is to begin preparing the ground at White Pines in May with active participation with the schools community. And by phase 2, by spring of 2026, the soil will be ready for planting. Partner volunteers will participate in the project from start to finish. By partnering with the ADSB, this will be an excellent opportunity to incorporate experiential learning with the students. And over the next 2 to 3 years, select stewards of the White Pines Little Forest will be tasked with maintaining new plantings until they are well established and thriving. In addition to preparing the soil for planting and asking for funds for the White Pines Little Forest, the Climate Hub is also asking for funds to start a little forest outdoor lab arm to complement the above ask. Two Climate Hub members have scientific experience to guide teachers in their installation of science equipment, collecting data and testing student-led hypotheses. Teachers bring their knowledge of curriculum and age-appropriate projects. Through this collaboration, they'll expand Little Forest into a living lab for the school sites. So the environmental score average was 4.4, community impact 4.4, financial analysis 3.2, project innovation collaboration 4.8, average score of 80% with an average score of 4.2. Comments received from members were love it, full funding, full funding, full funding, full funding, and support full funding.
Okay, that looks to be very strongly supported. Anyone with questions or comments in addition to these at this time? Seeing none, let's move on to the third application.
Okay, so the third application was from City of Sault Ste. Marie Fire Services for an electric snow blower. They're asking about $2,300 for this. They've already purchased 2 electric snow blowers and would like to purchase a third in preparation for next year's snow season. They are approaching the committee for assistance to replace one snow blower that is reaching the end of life with an electric model. In the application, they note that are facing a budget shortfall, which is why they're asking the committee for funding for this. So some of the comments, before I go there, score summary, 3.8 for sustainability, 2.6 for community impact, 1.8 for financial analysis, and 1.2 for innovation. Average score of 47% or 2.35. Comments received from committee members. We've been here before. The applicant states they need a new snow blower and like to buy an electric one instead of gas, but due to budget shortfalls, they can't afford the electric one. And if they can't get this funding, they'll buy a gas model. In other words, they have money for a gas model, but not an electric one, or am I missing something here? I'd like to know the cost of the gas model, including fuel costs for the lifetime of the gas machine versus the electric one. Full funding, while I recommend the funding, I think this should be part of their budget. Full funding recommended, no funding recommended. These expenses need to be funded in the city's regular budgets. Full funding, support funding delta, the difference between the internal combustion engine, so gas, and electric vehicle machinery. So some of the questions received, what is the delta for the cost of the ICE snow blower versus the EV options? I support funding that difference. So comparable gas models that Fire is looking at, there's 2, vary from $608.52 to $710.28. That includes non-rebatable HST. So the delta is between $1,600 and $1,700 and change, with an average of about $1731.96. Another question was, will Fire be advising on how/what is preventing them from building this funding into their operational budget? As noted, they will be purchasing internal combustion snow removal equipment due to a shortfall in their operating budget and equipment reaching its end of life. Going forward, they do plan to build these costs into the budget.
Okay. So seems to be somewhere in between here. If I look at the comments, there's several that say, well, there's 2 actually. There's 2 that say full funding with no further comment. There's one that says full funding, but when is this? Not let me not read something into it. This should be part of their budget. And then there's a comment with regards to why are we here again? There's a comment that says no, there's a comment that says fund the delta. So it feels like we're Corey.
I have a
Tori,
question
sorry.
first. So Emily, your timing, can you confirm this? We were here with them last January? Is
We
that
were,
correct?
no, we were here with them at the end of 2023, before the terms of reference changed in January of this year. So it's as of now, like as of 2024. So we have in terms of reference now, you must, as a city department, state how you will budget for these asks on a go-forward basis. So because there's no, this is the precedent, this sets that precedent.
And so a budget cycle would have been
Correct,
facilitated
correct.
through that. Okay.
Although I do think that we did bring this up.
We did.
The first time
Yeah.
anyways.
And I guess just, or go ahead if anyone else has questions, I have another comment. I think what I support funding the delta between the typical oil and then the EV option, but I think for me, what's disappointing to see is sort of the lack of detail in the post-grant report, given that we had advised them on, we wanna understand how they will go about putting that in the budget.
Yeah.
I think we also asked for data so that we could use it as a pilot project. This grant report is like half a page, there's no data. There's no evidence that they shared pictures of this on social media to spread awareness, and so, I guess. Yeah, I think that's something that we should think about. And the thing about the grants, so they're not judged on their post-grant report, but if you're coming back again, those are things that, are, I guess, disappointing to see.
Eric?
I agree with that.
Okay. I wasn't sure if do you want to add something?
No, I
No?
don't think so. That covers my feelings.
Okay.
Excuse me, I think from our current set of rules and how we're doing things, I think, you know, it meets all that criteria. And it was difficult for me to go through the rubric and say no. And I judged it what I thought fairly, so I had said, you know, yes, it's, you know, we could fund it. But in my mind, you know, we go back to some of the things we're working on as the task force and things like that, say, you know, going forward, things like this, we shouldn't really be funding. But I think this is where we run into some of the issues, is that the rules are followed and, you know, the rubric, we go by that, so that means, yes, you know, we could say absolutely we can fund it. But I think there's this, again, exemplifies some shortcomings that we've identified that how we need to move forward. So in my opinion, I would again say yes. You know, would say what I would fund it with that whole awareness that we need to change some things. And I think that's kind of where I'm at with that. So, but.
Okay.
That's about it.
Maybe I can say one thing.
Andrew, could you hang on 10 seconds, please, Andrew? Thank you. Could you enlighten us, relevant to the, thank you, you said you were okay with the difference, but are we gonna continue from your knowledge, and perhaps it's unfair to ask you this question, in which case you can tell me that.
It's not fair, I just don't know if I have a succinct answer for you, but if it were up to me, yes. If, you know, we've had some like kind of off the record conversations about these sorts of things with different departments, but I'm of the opinion that like this stuff should stop coming to this committee. Like, everybody seems in favor of it, I'd say no, but just because of my own kind of opinions on things, not that they didn't meet the criteria or didn't fill out things properly or whatever. In a budget the size of fire service, I don't know how they can't accommodate something under, that should be $2,000, right? And like, if someone pointed out there, it wasn't me, that, you know, this is like the third time, yeah?
I believe so.
So it can't, it's,
There's been lawnmowers and there's been winter equipment,
yeah.
so it's both, yeah.
yeah, so it doesn't seem to be a priority for them. And I think if we continue to support them in this regard, it may not necessarily ever seem to be a priority for them unless we kind of drastically change things as it relates to city departments prioritizing these initiatives.
Are you aware that could become a, is that on the agenda for the budget conversations around policy direction?
There is some direction which we give it
Okay,
as it relates to these sorts of things.
okay, all right. I understand there's things you can't talk about or whatever, and I appreciate that frankness. Andrew.
Yeah, so thanks. I'm in agreement with those who are sort of questioning this application. And my scores weren't included in this. I did send them, but that's okay. I know Emily missed it, but just to add like that, most of mine and the previous ones were sort of in line, but this one definitely like, I mean, I don't know what environmental sustainability merit a project like this really has. The amount, like, for example, a Honda snowblower uses such little amount of gas and emissions that it's like so marginal, and the amount of time it's being used is like they're highly efficient anyways. And if they have a budget for one of those, then why are we gonna support them? So that's like one hand, and then but not, we don't want to discourage them necessarily from using electric, but yeah, in terms of innovation, like I don't know, it just seems to me like kind of like a slush fund to, like, if we're not, if people are against maybe the signs going up that are talking about invasive species, that's to me like a much bigger problem than the amount of emissions caused by a snowblower. And I would prefer to use that funding to maybe say, hey, look, like, to Algoma University, for example, once that research is done on the signs, you have it, and then all the information about that can be applied anywhere. And I get that you want to have signs that are protected, and I mean, that's another argument. But in terms of supporting this, like, I'm not in support of projects like this, especially considering the budget of the fire department. And yeah.
Thank you, Andrew. Okay. So my comments were not to fund this, because I think it's time that these things are treated within the confines of the budgets that we have. And I will echo Councillor Gardy's comment, which is in the volume of a budget of fire services, it just seems a stretch that this can't be accommodated. And Andrew's comments are also very interesting around these types of decisions. Okay, moving on, last application.
Okay, so we received an application from the Recreation and Culture team for an electric lawnmower for $1,200 and change. They are applying for funding to replace one aging gas-powered lawnmower with an electric lawnmower, also asking for monies for the charger, rapid charger, and additional electric battery. The charger and spare battery can be used interchangeably with the existing lawn equipment that was funded earlier this year. Comments, they scored 3.6 for environmental sustainability, 2.4 for impact, 2.6 for financial, and 1.4 for project innovation. Average score 50% or 2.5. Comments received from the committee, same thing, same argument as fire services. Fund the difference in cost between electric model versus the gas one. Full funding, while I recommend funding, this should be part of the budget. Full funding recommended, no funding recommended. These expenses need to be funded in the city's regular budget cycle. Full funding and support funding the delta between the ICE and EV machinery. Question received from the committee member was, what is the delta? So a comparable cost option for gas model is $661.44. This includes non-rebatable HST. The delta is $539.72.
Okay, further comments around this item?
I don't think it changes between this and the lawnmower. Or sorry, the snow blower, if we all agree that, we need to stop funding the city for buying electric equipment, then yeah, this would be the same fate as the snow blower. It's a no type of scenario. not concerned, or it's more of a process, I guess, instead of, or saying going forward, no, because of this. And then how do we as a committee put forward that type of, I don't know if it's a resolution or not, but something going forward saying, the committee is not funding these types of projects anymore because there's been more than 2 to 3 years of funding them. And it should be in the budget cycle already, not. I mean, $500 is the delta of $500.
Yeah.
You know,
In my opinion, we have an opportunity and we can discuss this once we get to the terms of reference revision item on the agenda. With the revision of the terms of reference underway with Mark and Andrew and I, we should look at that perhaps as an element. Or doing an update, let's update the whole gamut.
Okay, other comments?
nope.
Anyone else?
Yeah,
Same as last one, sorry.
Same as last one, Andrew?
All the same things, only the difference with this one is, I would question why do they have so much grass? How much grass do they have to cut? And how many of those guys have their own lawnmower? Why can't they just bring their own lawnmower and cut the grass? It takes probably, half an hour, 20 minutes. Anyways, city wants to save money, I would say we start doing things like that. But yeah. The budget in 2022 for the fire department was $15 million. Just
Thank you, Andrew. Eric?
yeah, so after all this conversation, I'm thinking no to both of these now. But I will just say that, I just want to say that I disagree with Andrew on one thing, which is that I do actually think that there's a large positive impact of switching these small combustion engines over to battery. I think that there's research that shows the emissions of those things is tremendously high relative to the, cars and stuff like that. But I mean, you could, but then one snow blower being run by the fire department maybe doesn't have a huge impact on emissions. But the point is that you want to encourage the community to switch over to battery operated units. So there needs to be a strong component of outreach and demonstration of, we as a city and the fire department are doing this. And so there's no evidence of that from what we've seen, especially from the fire department. So that's why I would lean to no, but I just wanted to put out there that at least I, in this committee, still think there's a lot of value to supporting projects that switch from small combustion over to battery engines.
Thanks.
Yeah, I think similar to Mark's point, I struggle with saying no outright to these because of the way that we're judging them with the old or the existing rubric, right? Am I happy about these applications? No, it's frustrating. But when I read both of them, I almost wondered, because it's frustrating that there are folks in these organizations who want to switch, hence receiving the applications. But at some point, when it gets up the decision chain hierarchy, it's getting declined. And so it's not, probably not appropriate to, make a comment, but at some point, we have to see guys, hey, did you know that
Non-negotiable,
this is not appropriate?
Yeah.
We have your staff coming asking us for $500. Are you gonna tell us that you don't have $500 for this? So it just, to me, it raises a bigger concern among the organizations that fire services has a $15 million budget and the decision processes spilled out as they may that they can't put $1,000 towards renewing their equipment in a sustainable way.
They're sending this here like it's gonna be a formality. That's what they're doing, they think we're just gonna say yes. That's why they're sending it to us, right? They think that they're gonna send it here, that we're just.
Because they can't.
I understand that, but they're obviously not making any of this a
Yeah.
priority within their department, right? And it's incumbent upon me as being part of this, being part of council to kind of get that point across to everybody in every department. But I think, and raises a great point where we have an opportune time to address it within the mandate of this.
Yeah, the terms of
Right,
reference
right.
revision, yeah.
But right now, what I'm saying to you is, they think they send it here and we're just gonna say yes. That's what I'm telling you, that's what they think. That's why they're not making a priority, right? They don't think it's a big deal. They're asking for $1,700. That's my feeling.
Instead of making other choices on how
Yes.
to save the money to be able to accommodate different.
Oh, we need that, we need electric, so we'll just, we'll send it to the environmental sustainability committee, they'll.
Cause they'll pay
Yes.
for all of it instead of the different,
You
instead of
understand
the
what I'm saying?
combustion
Yeah, like, 'cause they could
version.
very well, like, I didn't raise the point, I think Tori raised it first, like. That could have been a reasonable request. Right, like, how did they not think of that? They had money budgeted for a traditional blower.
Mhm.
Like, they could have came and said, can you give us $1,000 to make the difference, but they did, so that's indicative to me that. It isn't a priority, and they're just throwing it at us. In a very, like, and speaking also to the fact that Tori raised, I think it was Tori. About. Like, they didn't follow up with anything that we kind of required them to do, and they didn't take any initiative. To make any outreach or any publicity to the public at large, saying look at what we're doing. So, like, all those things considered. I appreciate where we're at, I'd say no, but I can't. Based upon the criteria that we judge things with, right? Ish, so I'm good with 1,000 for now, but like. If this doesn't get updated and people don't get the message and I don't put forward something formally to council. And they come back with this next year. I'm saying no. The point is that council, there has to be a directive. Clearly made. To city staff. That these sorts of things, one, it's gonna be in there, you ain't coming to us anymore, but two. Make it a freaking priority. You feel what I'm saying? Like, sorry for being so explicit, but
Yep.
like.
No, and I think that I think that this group, I don't wanna speak for everyone. But I think that this group of which you were part of would say, like, how quickly could that happen? Because I think that the messaging that's coming from leadership is not perhaps direct enough.
Mhm.
Or I know we've had other situations where, instructions were given that were approved by council with regards to electric vehicles as an example, and that was, and I know there were some challenges around pandemic availability and all of that, but it appeared that also was not taken I don't know if seriously is the proper terminology,
Sure.
but it appears that was not, driven forward, pardon the pun, in the way that it could have been. And we're experiencing that with other things. So, let me ask you a question because it has to do with, well, both of you, sorry, I don't mean to point at you, but both of you as it relates to procedure, or process, I guess. So, the funds that, if we look at the fire services application for a snow blower, okay. Was this new snow blower budgeted for in their 2024 budget to be purchased before the end of this year to be used for the next 6 months?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, so then the flip side of this is a lawnmower, right? So what is the need to fund a lawnmower at the end of this year when we don't use lawnmowers until, if we're following no mow May, we are not using lawnmowers until June. And, should that not be something that is addressed in the 2025 budget, whereby these types of overarching principles and direction would be applied?
Good point.
Okay.
Are they just trying to use the budget up for the end of the year?
Okay. So, I'd like to go back.
Can I say one more thing?
Sure.
Yeah, so I like that these applications are raising, these very important, important things about what we're trying to do. And like, it's important not to lose sight of that. And I know that that's evolving now from what it was, but we're spending this time on a lawnmower and a snowblower. And it's like, if we say no to these things, that means more trees get planted. So it's not as if the money doesn't get spent. It does get spent. It gets spent on planting trees. And I think in the long run, right now, between having, they're going to figure it out how to plow their lawn and how to mow their lawn. Like they're going to figure it out if we don't fund these things. Trust me, like they won't have the community will be safe. They'll be able to get those fire trucks out of there, and they're not going to be knee deep in grass in their field there. So on the flip side, we get to say, hey, here's some funding for more trees for our community, which we can really argue has a massive impact on carbon sequestration. And it's a longer term, sure, but to me, that's sort of like definitive for me, anyways, to say, okay, I'm saying no, that's where I'm at, and everybody knows why. And there's more to that because of this new this evolution of our terms of reference, which is going to come today as well. But it's not as if this money just is going to go back into the public coffers or whatever. It's going to go towards planting trees, and I think that has a lot of merit. And if we fund both of these, essentially we don't plant very many trees. So yeah, thanks.
Thanks, Andrew. Okay, what I'd like to do with your permission is I'd like to now go backwards from in terms of the approval or non-approval of these, because we're on this topic of very detailed conversation around these last two applications. So can we go from 4 back to 1 so that we're not leaving and then coming back to something? So is it fair to treat them both with the same thinking, or would you prefer that we treat them separately? I don't want to. I'm getting the sense that there's not a lot. I don't want to put words in people's mouths. I don't believe that there's tremendous support. I believe some folks might be prepared to fund the Delta. Let's do them separately. Let's just do them separately. So let's start at 4. This is the application for the lawnmower for recreation and culture. Could I get a sense of where everyone's at in terms of who's an outright no? I know Andrew is. Who's an outright, because he said it, who's an outright no, we are not going to fund this? Mark?
I think I'm gonna right now.
Okay, Eric?
Oh, this is tough.
Is it tough one?
I feel like procedurally, I want to support funding the Delta, but if I get outvoted, I would be happy. Does that make sense? Sorry.
Well,
So we have a help.
I'll help Tori with that and I'll say no.
Okay.
I was going to say no also. I just didn't want to do that. Okay, so that is declined.
So 0.
0. All right, moving backwards to application from fire services for this snow blower. Let's do the same thing as we did. I know Andrew is a no. Is there anyone else who is a no? Not you.
I am going to recommend we fund the Delta.
Okay.
There's
Anyone?
specific reasons for that if you really wanted to know, but that's just my opinion.
Let's see where everyone's at first. Is anyone else a no? Or is anyone else a fund the Delta?
I'll say no.
I'm saying no.
Money is that.
That is 3 no's.
Well, Andrew too, right?
Yes, I counted Andrew. So
Okay, right,
Andrew,
right, because Mark.
Corey, and
Okay, I'm with Mark.
okay.
Now you're the.
It's like a political thing.
I'm going to be no. So that's a 0.
Can
All
I
right.
just make one small recommendation that when we don't fund these projects, that we have maybe just a paragraph explaining, not
They're informed. They're
yeah,
informed.
like to kind of encourage what we've all kind
Yep.
of leaning towards, it seems. But
They're
I don't know. I don't know
fine.
if that's part of the procedure or whatever, but I just
It sounds like there'll be some follow-up through other channels in terms of direction as well, if I'm reading the tea leaves properly. Okay. Oh, I missed one. Oh, okay, so, thank you. So, the application from, where did it go? Oh, here it is, bottom here. The Climate Hub for the White Pines, Little Forest, East View Outdoor Lab Project. There was no concern about this whatsoever from anyone. This was very strongly supported. Anyone changing their mind about that? Seeing none, that is approved at 100% of 11,233.97.
Sorry, can I ask, since my kid goes to that school, is there a way to get involvement, or who do you contact for that?
So I would recommend,
Just if I wanted to.
Get that.
speaking of AI, I would recommend, I can connect like yourself or the PUC directly to the Sioux Climate Hub, who are the organizers for this. They're working directly with the Algoma District
Yeah.
Water Board. I think it's a great project for other community involvement. I know for their other project at Eastfield, they partnered with your neighborhood credit union. And they actually had staff from the credit union come out and
Mhm.
plant trees
Mhm.
as part of the project as well. So I can make a note and connect you with Sandra.
Yeah,
Um,
we've just, as a family, we've planted a lot of trees.
Awesome.
Elsewhere.
Yeah.
We just, he's a
The-
bit of a.
the
pro
other-
at it now,
The
so.
other, so not a family thing, or it could be, but the other people that are noted on the application who I've done a lot of work with through the Algoma Fall Festival is Lisa Karanen,
Mhm.
from ADSB, who's really a champion for many things along these lines, including arts and culture and nature and science and all of that, and Jen Morelli. So whether that's a PUC thing, reaching out to them,
Or even a committee thing.
Or
like
a
if
committee thing,
members,
yeah.
like, I will.
they're working hard. Okay, and last, finally, the application from Algoma University for the invasive species sign project. So I got the feeling that most people were in favor of this. Is anyone, am I reading that one right? So Andrew was in favor.
Yeah, I
Mark,
was in favor, yeah.
Eric, Tori.
I'm in favor. I would love for a comment to be made around considering, what would it take to scale this to other neighborhoods, forested areas?
Yeah.
Linking to the hub trail, et cetera, et cetera.
And to that comment, I made the comment, why are they not partnering with the invasive species center?
Yeah,
yeah.
That would be a good mechanism to
Yeah.
help expand the outreach.
We'll pass that along.
and also like can they make, like, if other people want to put signs, can they have some kind of format or something where, like, if other people on their property want that they can share their research, and like, once you have a template and a sign, all you have to do is reprint it. So will they be able to share that? Because you do that research once, and
When the sign is done, can it essentially be open source or something, so
Yeah.
that
yeah.
it's not proprietary to Algoma, you and people, let other people print it or pay for it to pre-print it and put up. I think it makes.
I'll go along with supporting this, but I want to reiterate, and perhaps you could share this.
Yeah.
I am very concerned about the longevity of that method of delivering the message. It's not the message. I believe strongly in the message. I just feel that method it doesn't reach a lot of people, number one, and number two is just really subject to vandalism and damage, and that that doesn't help anything, so.
Okay.
Okay, moving right along,
Is that full?
that is full support, yes.
So you'll need to read the resolution for the.
Oh, thank you. So. The resolution, so I need a mover and a,
Dollars amount.
thank you, Emily, and mover and a seconder.
Oh.
Mark and Tori. Be it resolved that the Environmental Sustainability Committee supports the request for funding from the Green Initiatives Program for the following projects and amounts, and recommends that council approves the requests. Fully fund the Algoma University Invasive Species Sign Project at $2,476.23. Fully fund the Sioux Climate Hub, White Pines, Little Forest, and Eastview Public School Outdoor Laboratory at $11,233.97. No funding for the City of Sault Ste. Marie Fire Services Electric Snowblower Project, and no funding for the City of Sault Ste. Marie Recreation and Culture Electric Lawnmower Project. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Moving on is the item on the terms of reference update.
So as you know, we have created a task force to review the Green Initiatives Fund terms of reference. You've been provided with a copy of the terms of reference for the Green Fund applications in your agenda package, page 76. You can see the track changes within where these changes have been made. On a high level, we added a statement about Anishinaabe worldviews, emphasizing the interconnectedness of living things, and explained the significance of viewing these elements as relatives within the Anishinaabe culture. A revised definition of sustainability, including the 9 relatives, long-term impact, so revised a definition of long-term impact and sustainable supply chains. The grant application itself, 4 questions have been added under environment. So under section, I think it's section 5. Under, environmental benefits, 1 question was amended. As far as next steps go, we can discuss the proposed edits to date with the committee today, so just feedback and discussion. We'll be meeting as a task force one more time, and we'll bring back the draft to the committee in January. Once approved, we'll go to council for final approval. A reminder, they have final say. And if that is approved, we will then go forward with, sorry, all over the place here. We will look at organizing an information session for the public, informing them of the revised changes to the Green Initiatives Fund. So I'm happy to go through this with the group. I don't know if anyone has any comments or questions so far. I'll also invite Andrew and Mark, who have been the ones working with me on this process, to highlight anything that you'd like to share with the committee. Formal feedback can be received via email. We can discuss it now. We will be bringing back the final draft for full comments, etc. in January, but this is just an update on what we've had cooking so far. Andrew, I don't know if there's anything you'd like to add. Mark?
Sure, yeah, no, I just appreciated the opportunity to include some of this because it's related to my ongoing research about what sustainability is. Kind of like just in this moment, when I was in London, I was on this environmental committee, and one of the committee members on one of my first meetings was like, "Oh, we're so lucky that the rivers are clean now." And I was like, "Oh, and what are you comparing that to?" And so they're comparing like the 2010 river to the 1960s river.
All right.
And I was like, depending on what you have as your baseline or as your standard, things can look really good. and why that particular thing is important is just because I think from the feedback just moments ago, you know, like we have these standards, and so there's sort of a bit of pull in terms of how we evaluate things because we have a certain standard, you know, and you can't just change the standard. Like once you have an evaluation criteria, you have to follow it. So essentially, we're just moving the yardstick a little bit in terms of how we define sustainability with what I feel is like a bit more of a broader perspective. I mean, this was already approved in terms of the motion to include this, but how then it's operationalized was the big question. And so I just, you know, grateful to Mark and Emily for giving space and time to really talk about this and how it all connects with the present and the future of sustainability for the community and beyond.
Andrew? Art, anything to add? I'll go through it real quick, but if there's any.
We can, but I would encourage, you know, everyone to take a good read of it. I think it's a lot of work by Andrew, putting this forward. And, you know, kind of changing our minds and our mindsets about how to look at this. And I think it's a very good, I would say start, and it's a very good move forward on, you know, what this committee could be about and will be about going forward. So I think it's important that when we get everyone's feedback and, you know, information sharing with this, because I think it's very good. And I would hope that, you know, everyone takes a good look at it. It takes a bit of time to digest it and then start sending out, you know, maybe not necessarily today, we need comments back, but come back and talk about it further.
Thanks, Mark. So I'm just going to briefly go through it on a high level here. So starting on page 76 of your agenda package. So as I said in my comments here, we got a statement about the Anishinaabe worldview. This is pulled directly from the resolution that Andrew brought forward to the committee. In the definition section, so section 3.0, we've reframed the definition of sustainability and also added an explanation of the 9 relatives that were also brought forward in Andrew's resolution. Then we provide a definition for long-term impact. So this is really bringing in things like beyond immediate carbon reduction, so materials, ethical practices of suppliers. You know, this is certainly something that you're seeing in bigger organizations for sure, as far as sustainable procurement is concerned. As a corporation, we are not there yet. There's a definition provided for sustainable supply chains. So the materials used. So that's just the terms of reference itself. If you flip through now into the grant application, here we've added, there was just a few details that were amended in the last amendment. So I just got rid of that at the top there. This the category. We don't have the categories anymore. We just give them as a list and not limited to. But we added a question here. How does your project impact local ecosystems and their interdependencies? Please consider, where applicable, the 9 essential relatives outlined in the sustainability definition, so 3.1 of the terms of reference. We've also added another question. Does your project consider the supply chain of the goods you are seeking funding for? This includes, but is not limited to, the materials used in their production, transportation. If so, explain the ways you've considered local supply chains and the materials you are seeking in their sustainability. Then there's another question about, if applicable, does your project seek to support local businesses with the purchase of goods or services that you're applying for? Then we made an amendment to impact. We just added the long-term impact, which we provided a definition for in the terms of reference itself. So the other amendments that are included, so page 85 of your agenda package, pertain to the rubric. We have not added a new category, we've just built in some language to the existing category 2, which is community and now long-term impact. And we've added just another area to consider when scoring about the long-term, like sustainable materials, ethical sourcing, etc. So that is the change that's been reflected there. If there's any comments or thoughts from committee members, please bring them forward. This is not the, like, this is just step 1. This is just the first draft, so open to hear them. Tori?
Okay, thanks for your work, Andrew and Mark and Emily on this. This is really cool to see this taking shape. I guess, Emily, a question, and I want to take a deep dive on this and
For sure.
provide like substantive comments.
I think I'll
in the
prepare
weeks to
something
come.
electronic for people,
Perfect.
so.
Thanks. But I think we have talked a bit about, you know, prioritizing different types of applicants, those sort of policy elements that are that could be incorporated into this new TOR in addition to the like the framework that's been presented. So are you looking for draft language around that? Is that
So
something?
policies, like.
So I'm
can you give me
talking,
an example.
say we have $10,000, there's 2 community groups and
Right.
1 city department.
Like a threat, like,
The community groups
I
are,
see what you're
get
saying.
a heavier weight
I see what you're saying.
in
right.
a limited financial scenario. So things like that, I think, not to overly complicate things, but
Other committees, for example, arts and culture, I believe, they have certain like thresholds for ranking, like if it doesn't meet a certain point, I believe projects are not even considered, like if it doesn't reach a certain
Yeah, that's
score.
based on, yes, that's
It's a
based.
different, like, there's no, when it comes to city funding, like, there's no uniform approach at
Mhm,
present, like,
mhm.
they all have their own rules. So certainly, that is something we can do some research on. I wonder if we could tie that into the ranking somehow, like a threshold, you know? Like if you don't meet a certain score, or it's like, some of the bottom line is, some of the community groups, including schools, okay, they're so strapped for time. We just wanna make sure
for sure.
that they aren't too intimidated to put in the effort and then not get their monies, right? So you bring forward a good point. I will think about a way to do that. Because we've been in that situation before. It's complicated, like, you know, who gets priority, I guess, is what. you're
Yeah,
saying.
and I think if there is, you know, a strong application that we wanna give full funding for, but we don't have the money to fund all of them, we should feel empowered to be able to do that. If,
Based on some kind of a policy
Yeah.
or procedure, I
Yeah.
understand.
So that was my one point. The other point, and I don't have any strong feelings about this, but is it, the money's left over at the end of the year does go to tree planting? Is the committee still pleased with that approach? Is there an interest in rolling some of that money over to next year? Like asking council for a different
Yep.
approach to that as well?
So we could,
I don't know.
as it stands, just as a reminder for everyone, when the fund was first established in 2021, the councilors brought forward a resolution saying any remaining funds in the green fund go towards tree planting on city land the following year until the end of this election cycle, which ended in 2022. So we had this small window between October 2022 to like January 2023, where we were able to roll over, and for a few months, we actually had a reserve of monies, because yes, this happened. So Shortly after the new council came in 2023, they brought forward a resolution, same resolution, but for this council. So from 2022 to 2026. So they brought forward a resolution that has been passed. I have it, I see it, that says any monies left over in the green fund go to tree planting on city lands the following year. So no reserve. We as a committee could propose the creation of a reserve. In theory, I would have to double check procedurally if we can trump what happens from a counselor.
No,
But-
you can't trump it,
We
but you
can't?
could send a letter asking for it to be. But that's a bigger
So we can't
conversation than
bring
we're gonna
forward-
have tonight.
We
Yeah.
can't bring forward.
No, we can't tell them what to do, but we could ask them to do
So we
something.
could put forward a resolution as a committee
Yes,
that is then brought to council for them to consider.
for these reasons, we ask that you.
That's the
what-
process.
But that's not a conversation we're gonna have tonight,
No.
but it can go on the list of things to think
Okay.
about.
And then my final comment is, I think. Go back to timing, anyways, I think my biggest concern about this is that people will be intimidated by the added, I guess, holistic nature of it, which is good, but also don't want people to be dissuaded from applying, so I'm wondering if in between bringing this back in January and then going to council for approval, is there an opportunity to have a really small sort of focus group conversation with some folks that have already applied to say, hey, what do you think of this? Is this intimidating? What would you say differently, to make sure that we have all the right information and we're asking the right questions in the right way? I just think that's really good exercise before we go to council and get it locked in, and then we go out to the public and say,
Yeah,
hey, this is what we're doing.
that's a great idea.
We can make cookies or bring.
Of course.
Yeah.
If that's what you want.
I
bring to it.
Can
know it's
I
hard to
say,
get people to volunteer their time, that's all.
sorry,
No.
sorry, I just want to say one thing too, and but thank you. I do think that's a good idea as well, like to get feedback. It's just being cautious between like, you know, what we have ahead of us is really hard. And I don't know that we're fully communicating that message. Like, to combat climate change, we all have a big task ahead of us. This is not the work of some other people or them or some community. It's like, it's my work as much as it is your work personally. Like, it's a monumental.
Gross.
Like, because ahead of us is absolutely monumental. And am I still there? Am I still with you?
You
Yeah.
are, you froze for a moment, but you're.
Oh,
good.
okay. There's so much energy behind what I'm saying and screwed up my internet. Just joking. So on one hand, no, like we don't want to discourage people, and that's why part of this, and we haven't talked about it yet, but it is in the package. Well, it's that like so what I'm going to do as a volunteer is share like a presentation, that the same presentation that I shared with this committee or with the team, the focus group on this particular, the task force, right? And make that publicly available. And so that will be like, in addition to what you're saying, Tori, like that will be something else to support applicants, because, you know, people don't know what an Anishinaabe worldview is. And that's a really, real big shame, because of where you're in our capital city. Like we're in the capital city of Anishinaabe people. And one of the most important places in the country that made Canada a country because of Anishinaabe people. Like we fought for all of us to have the place that we do. And so, like I guess what I'm saying is like, this is big and we need people to understand that it's big. We can't sugarcoat. And I get that teachers are busy. I know that as well as anyone. But then they cannot be too busy for climate change. They cannot be too busy for environmental sustainability. Because if they are, then we're all like, it's a big problem for all of us. It doesn't matter your socioeconomic status. We are like Sault Ste. Marie is a very isolated place. And if heaven forbid, any of the infrastructure, like the food infrastructure, for example, is interrupted, even for a day, the impact of that is like, I don't know that people really understand what's happening in our society right now. Like it's happening, we have to prepare. And so I'm saying this to you in this group, or maybe anybody else is watching on YouTube. I doubt there's anybody, but like, I'm saying it because I build a level of trust to be able to speak in this way. But we have to communicate that this is hard, and being able to see holistically is just one small step in a direction to ensure that our community survives what's coming. So if there's any way that I can make that easier, explaining this, and I know that it took a good hour of me sharing to kind of, for Emily, and the rest of the task force to kind of see what we're seeing there. I'm willing to do that. Like, and I don't want anything to do that, despite the years of research and the years of practice that is taken to get to this place. I just want the message to be out there. So, yeah, I'm going to support that in whatever way that I can, so that, yes, it's going to be hard, but that's okay. We're going to give them every possible asset that we can to support them in being, and who knows what, we don't know. Like right now we're getting applications for lawnmowers. Maybe we're going to get applications for like people who are going to really try to transform our community, like the foodscapes that are being built at these schools. Like these are the kinds of initiatives that's like excite me and say, yeah, we, if our food supply chain is interrupted, I know where to go now. White Pines is, and my student is building something at Hiawatha, and we're, these little efforts are going to go a long way down the road.
Thanks, Andrew. Any other comments on this? Because I do have another slide, because what we're going to do, I've decided, I'm going to take this update that we're working on per Andrew's resolution to just do a bit of an overhaul of the process altogether. So if there aren't any other comments pertaining to the application, were there? Do you have any? Go for it.
I brought this up last time.
Yeah.
I guess you guys probably haven't got there yet with the task force. This is all, I said this before too, everything that Andrew just said and everything in here makes perfect sense to me. I just struggle with the language in the 9 relatives and how we would actually be able, what are we looking for? What will we be looking for operationally? How do we operationally assess a project on these 9 relatives, first off? Because if I just think about the one that we scored really high today, it doesn't hit on all 9 of those. And then the second thing, and maybe that's to your point, Andrew, that you would want it to, but I think it would be very hard for it, for almost any project to. And then my second comment is that the language, the 9 relatives. I mean, obviously, this comes from a lot of thought that I have not been involved in, but it is fairly specific, like fungi is not including bacteria and algae. Plants and trees even is very specific. Arthropods is a very specific class of invertebrates. Reptiles, but not amphibians. So to me, there's just some strange, I have some concerns around the language, I guess, and it being kind of specific in its definition of what's holistic, but then also how do we assess a project to be, what do we determine, the first point I made, how do we determine whether a project is holistic enough? And I guess that second part is something you guys will be talking about in your task force at some point.
Yeah, and personally, I think you're spot on with your comment, and having that kind of voice to share opens it. So like those 9 factors came out of consultation with through a shirt grant that I got when I was down south, and I met with 60 or like over the course of the full year, 60 Indigenous leaders and allies to ask simply like, what do we remember about the environment? So certainly it's not a comprehensive list in terms of every environmental factor. And I think that, like could probably go on, right? Especially if we use scientific terminology. That was like condensing a year's worth of work with meeting all these different peoples over the course of 4 different celebrations, where we brought in also community members after to have like feast and to invite feedback. So you know, I use those 9, but they're not a comprehensive list in terms of like all the environmental factors. And like we did discuss exactly what you said about like we know that people aren't going to be able to see all 9 in terms of their project at once, but if they can see 3 past like just the reduction of carbon emissions, which is our current standard, then I think we've moved, we've taken a step in the right direction. Like to me, this is about a longer term vision of what sustainability is, how it relates to the land of the people who are acknowledged at every meeting, and then allowing the intelligence of the community members to evolve based on that information, if that makes sense. Like I trust that what you're saying, yeah, what Tori's saying, but Mark, what like everybody's seeing things that are so important. So this is open for these kinds of comments. And if we want to add to the 9 to include some of the things that you just mentioned, absolutely. Like that's not an end. It's just a beginning of what could be.
I think, sorry, to add to that, I think from my perspective, learning and understanding, you know, it's a lot of that, and it's, you know, when we talk about this and go through it, there was a very open dialogue and a very, you know, moving that forward, and so that we all understand it and, you know, can work towards a better outcome, you know, in that, like to Andrew's point, this is, you know, this is the beginning, you know, and that's why I have said in the task force too, you know, I'm hard pressed to set exact dates on this, because we could start, when we start getting opinions and comments and things like that, it could take a little longer to evolve, but make better. And I think that's kind of that's the point, is that, and why I think we brought it forward to this group now, is, and why I was kind of stressed to say, take this away, make your comments and send them via
Mhm.
email, because. You know, I think it's important that we get everybody's opinion and, you know, make this better. I have said repeatedly in the task force, I really need to go back over these questions and how do we refine them or make them a little better from a process standpoint so that people can apply, but are still understanding why they're applying and what our message is getting out there to that. So I think it's a good,
So it's a start, it's, I don't know how many times we've upgraded this terms of reference, we've done it quite a few. I think it's a good opportunity for the city, okay, like I don't think anyone else has gone into this kind of a dive. And even our procurement team, I know for a fact hasn't. There is a gap here of knowledge, you know, people at this table are subject matter experts in their own areas, but you know, we do want to make sure that people apply. It's not like we are in a serious shortfall situation with the fund. I can tell you as the person who is trying to push the fund, we do not get a ton of applications, but I like what you said, Andrew, about maybe the type of applications that we get. This will act as a catalyst to get things that are thinking more holistically. But we do have to, I think, understand that these 9 elements are based on a research project that you participated in. So there might be value in defining that as part of the methodology in particular, because this is one, you know, this, of course, it's evolutionary. This fund has been evolutionary since it came to be in 2021. But I think that, you know, we may want to add that in, like add a reference as like to where this came from. In addition, so I will commit to the committee that you'll receive some form of electronic feedback thing for this. Just quickly though, I'm going to add to this questionnaire that I developed some things that have come up from the committee members lately for just an entire terms of reference overhaul. So like, I just want to share some comments that I received from committee members this time around. So for ranking projects, scoring helps determine the quality of the project, but the committee can also have a lens above that on how to prioritize the money. You may remember before we didn't have a matrix, we just would hash it out, right? So now we have this matrix and it's like a starting point. We've been able to kind of quantify things, which is useful. I feel it's been helpful to the committee as a whole. But then, you know, this committee member said we could all score the project with 20s, you know, and then the decision will be to fund them all, but like, it's a challenge. In my opinion, we gotta start somewhere. It seems to be working well. Other comments were like concerns about not needing to fund everything that comes across the table. So I'll just reiterate, we do not have a glut of applications at present. So you know, we'll have to come up, I know Tori, you brought forward like a threshold piece, like if we're picking between project A and project B, you know, what gives it a priority? If one has already applied for money before, maybe they're out of it, you know, and we give it to the other one, I'm not sure. That's going into this next point about how, like, who has received previous funding, you know, could they get a -1 if the score is too heavy? You know, the community could gain more benefit by spreading the funding across multiple organizations. As it stands, our terms of reference allow for one application a year, for more than one application a year, and it's designed first come, first served. As long as they've submitted their claim, they can apply again. And again, we do not have people applying en masse for this. So just as an FYI, I'll include this in whatever I prepare for additional feedback from committee members. And then what was discussed today, maybe we need to consider completely omitting city departments from eligible entities to apply as well. So in addition to what's being proposed by Mark and Andrew from the task force, we'll include that in the terms of reference update that's going to come to you in January. So if there's no further comments, I will just jump to my staff update really quickly because we've got about 4 minutes left. So October 16th, I went to the Algoma District School Board Speaker Summit. Schools, ADFB students from all across Algoma were there. I pushed the Green Fund and no one from that summit applied. So just as a further example of the challenge it is of getting people to apply to this fund. Our deep energy retrofit audit project is delayed, but we're hoping that it's done by the end of the month. We're just waiting on the consultants to provide us with those final reports. Battery electric bus study is ongoing. And this is, looking at costing, technology, timelines to support the electrification of the city's bus fleet. Tender development is in progress at John Rhodes roof, and so is the solar administration building project. We kicked off earlier this month. The city has partnered with Garden River First Nation, the Algoma Highlands Conservancy, with Ontario Nature through funding from Parks Canada to work on an ecological corridor project. It was identified as one of 14 ecological corridor areas by Parks Canada. So it's just kicked off. I'll share more details as we're moving forward. Sustainability report is a work in progress. We are almost halfway done the city EV charger project. You may notice on your way out, we've got the first one installed here, just starting at the Civic Center for corporate fleet. We also received word last week that we have received 50% of project funding from the Ministry of Transportation for electric vehicle chargers for the public at John Rhodes. The Building to Net Zero project update that I mentioned last month as it pertains to building a green development standard for Sault Ste. Marie is ongoing. I'm working with ICLEI on that. So we're just identifying stakeholders, mainly building, who will work with on that. And yeah, last week I did a presentation to Sioux College nursing students about the city's sustainability portfolio, how their work in healthcare will be impacted by climate change. Very quickly, I just wanted to acknowledge this is our last formal meeting of the year. I was wondering, and I'll send out a poll just given time constraints, if the first Tuesday of the month at 4 p.m. still works. Due to the holiday season, I'm proposing our first meeting be just a little into January, when we talk about this application process, etc. So I've given some high level months that I've identified in some of the core pieces. A lot of it has to do with the quarterly intakes for the Green Initiatives Fund. So I don't know if anyone has any burning comments they want to share. I'll send out a poll. But does 4 o'clock on a Tuesday typically work for most people? I know it's hard to tell because we're not even in 2025 yet. But it's been working so far, so good?
Mhm.
Okay, all right. All right.
It works, but I won't be here that day,
Okay, well,
the 14th.
that's all right. Hope you're somewhere warm. Okay, so that's that, Mark. I'm gonna ask you to call a
Yep.
motion to adjourn. Go for it. I just asked for a mover and a seconder.
Yeah, so I guess we're asking for a mover and a seconder to adjourn the meeting. Dory and Andrew, Dory, mover, Andrew's seconder,
Thank you. Okay,
that would mean we're adjourned.
yes, very good. Thanks, everyone.
Have a nice evening.
Thanks, Andrew. Take good care. Nice seeing you.